Did you know that less than 15% of the books published each year by traditional publishers are by people of color? Well, on Girls Talk Books, we uncover the truth about diversity in the publishing industry and celebrate the authors and industry trailblazers who are changing the game, sharing their wisdom, and inspiring the next generation of storytellers. If you are an aspiring author, a publishing professional, or just someone who loves the power of a great story, this is the podcast for you. So grab your notebook, your favorite drink, and get ready to celebrate the power of representation in publishing. This is Girls Talk Books, where your voice matters. Let's go. Leah Hernandez is the founder of Muse Inc. Publishing. It started as an idea in her dorm room when she was a student at Clark Atlanta University. Her idea was to help kids publish their own books and have royalties placed in a savings account. Today, Leah not only helps children, but adults publish their books for worldwide distribution. Let's welcome Leah Hernandez.
I am from Pomona, California, which is about 40 minutes outside of LA. I grew up around incredible, strong women. I was raised by my mother. My father, unfortunately, died when I was really young. And so I grew up around my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother. And they all at one point worked with women in prison. And I grew up really having a strong perspective on what it meant for your work to help people. And so I grew up going to women's prisons, kind of going to counseling sessions with my grandma and going to these sessions with my mom. My mom worked with children with behavioral issues. And so I grew up around women who dedicated their lives to helping our world and country's most vulnerable people. And I think that really helped me to decide what I wanted my career to be. And although I would go in the business realm, it helped me to figure out how I can do that through helping people.
Okay. So then we fast forward a little bit. So then you grew up. What was high school like? You went on to college. Kind of give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, so high school was really cool. I was the kid who did everything. I was in cheer, I was in ASB. I always wanted to be somebody's leader and be running something, even as a little kid. And so high school was really cool because I learned a lot about community because I was a part of so many different groups. I was a part of the BSU, the Black Student Union. In my junior year of high school, I remember going to the Black College Fair in LA. And that's kind of when my world got opened up to the possibility of going to a HBCU. Before I was just thinking like, oh, I'll just go to like a CSU or somewhere in California that'll still be close to home. And then I remember going to that fair and seeing so many Black people and so many different Black colleges all over the world. And I was like, I think this is where I want to go. And funny enough, Clark Atlanta, which is where I went to school here in Atlanta, Georgia, that was one of the only schools that accepted me. And so I was like, well, that's where I'm going to go. And I'm very crazy because I never have been on a plane. I never traveled to Atlanta. I really haven't tried or traveled outside of the West Coast. And so my first time viewing Clark Atlanta's campus was my move-in day. And, it worked out. I loved Clark Atlanta University so much. It really shaped who I am. I had some of the best professors. I had some of the best mentors that are still a part of my life. And I've never left Atlanta. I'm still here almost 10 years later. And it's a lot of the reason why I kind of started my entrepreneurial journey was being on Clark's campus.
I know I recently I knew about Clark Atlanta University, but it was when Dr. Black did that commencement address that I was like, oh my gosh, he is fire. And anybody who would have been associated with him at the school had an opportunity to really be a part of someone who really saw students of color for who they are and what their potential is. And just to have that HBCU, environment, I think is so valuable. I went to a predominantly white university here in Kalamazoo, Western Michigan University, but to have that community, it seems like everybody I know who's graduated from HBCU comes out with a different sense of self and pride. So, and then you have that drive and determination and boldness to say, I can do whatever it is I want to do. And you get that, I believe, from HBCU. So I'm glad Clark Atlanta, took you, and then you were able to stay in the community and do your thing. So, what did you go to
Yeah.
school for? And or you want to share anything else about HBCUs? And
Yeah, no, 1,000%. I agree with you. And it's so funny because I actually never really left Clark. Our office is really close to the campus. And so it's funny because I see Dr. Black all the time and he'll come by and we have great conversations. Dr. Kimbrough, Dennis Kimbrough was another one of my professors in my freshman year, which meant so much to me because going to his class every day was like going to a motivational speech about life and just like a master class on how to be in life, how to care for people, how to lead with excellence, how to operate as a professional, as a Black professional. So yeah, I love my university hands down. When I was at Clark, I actually was a part of the financial literacy department, which also really shaped my work. So the financial literacy department was the first department on all four campuses. And so I was an intern, or well, I was really a work study student. And then they build out a thing called the Peer Counselor Network. So what that meant is I would go to classes and on Morehouse's campus, on Spelman's campus in Clark, and I would teach my peers how to manage their money because it was all about financial literacy. And the woman who runs that program, Dr. Lakeisha Landers, is incredible. She taught me so much. I, in fact, when I came into school, I took out a lot of loans. And I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but I think it leads to kind of what I'm doing now. And I remember she sat me down and she was like, Leah, your degree isn't going to really be as much as all of the debt that you're going to be in if you keep going on this route. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And I was like, well, if it's meant for me to be here, I'll get scholarships and grants, but I'm not taking out any more loans. And then Clark was like, okay, well, girl, you got 2 weeks to pay us this money or you gonna be out this dorm. And I dedicated myself to applying for as many scholarships and grants as I could. And from sophomore year to senior year, I had a full ride. In fact, I would get refunds and scholarships because that's how adamant I was about making sure that my education was free and then I wouldn't be in debt at the time that I left the university. So yeah, that was my HBCU experience, and it's a big reason as to why I started Young Authors Publishing because I wanted to make sure that kids had access to money and financial literacy through the book sales that they were making.
wow, that's beautiful. So now let's get into your company. So tell us the name of it and then how it all came to be.
So Young Authors Publishing is the name of the company. We also have Muse, which is our adult imprint. I started it while I was on Clark's campus. The short version is my sophomore year of undergrad. I traveled to China and had the vision to, it was part of a cultural exchange program. There was another student who had written a book that I read there, and I was really inspired and got the vision to write and publish my own book. So I did that my sophomore year of undergrad. The following year, I had a mentor
What was
who,
that book? Let's back up a little. What was the book that you wrote while you were in undergrad?
I like very rarely talk about this because so long ago. The book was called Try God, and it talks about how to have an authentic relationship with God. And it was really inspired because I was leaving, I left home, I left my home church, I left my family and everybody I knew, and I was in this new place, and I felt like I was growing a lot spiritually, and I really had to discover what it meant to have my own relationship with God. And a lot of that was deeply rooted during my time at my university. So that was a really great experience. I got the chance to go to Essence Festival in 2017 with the book and sold out there, which was really nice. And then the following year, a mentor of mine told me about an opportunity with the Atlanta Housing Authority, and they were looking for like more youth development programs and nonprofits and initiatives. He was like, you should really consider applying for this grant. And I was like, well, I'm a junior at the time. And I was like, well, I don't really know how to do much, but like I put a book together for myself. So maybe I can help some kids put a book together. And then I was supposed to be off of that because my goal was to get a great corporate job. I went into work for BT and plan all their events. I was like, I need to get paid when I leave this university and like climb the corporate ladder.
Mhm.
Um, and so the first, I got the grant and I worked with four girls who wrote a book called Roxy's Day in Vine City, which is a real community here in Atlanta. At the time, it was being rapidly gentrified because we had a new stadium that was coming, and the community loved it and backed it. And schools purchased the books, libraries purchased the books. And I seen the transformative experience it was for the girls. Who they were when they came into the program and when we started was not the same for girls after they published the book. And then I was like, well, I really enjoy doing this, so let's do it again. The next year, I did 13 books by 13 young men on the west side of Atlanta. And we've kind of just been going there. So, yeah, we're 7 years, 8 years later. We've published a little over 50 books, and Young Authors Publishing only publishes books written by Black and Brown children. And then last year, I launched an adult imprint because I realized in working with publishing and in the industry, there's not just a lack of diversity in children's books, there's a lack of diversity in the entire ecosystem of publishing, and adult Black authors have just a hard time getting published. And so I launched that imprint last year. So now we do adult and children's books. That was a really long rundown, but
I
that's
love it.
who we are, what we do.
I love it. So, are you still with the city doing the publishing? Is it a partnership with the city, or is it your own, 501c3 or LLC? Like, how have you incorporated that into your
Yeah,
business?
I'm so glad that you asked that because it's really a journey. When I first started, we were a nonprofit. And then a few years in, I realized that I cared more about being a really good publisher than I did an after school program. Because in order for these kids to really see money from their books, I had to learn how to do publishing well. And so I think like a year in or 2 year, and we did get our 501c3, but I transitioned the company to be a for-profit business. And so we work with the city, not in the sense of like getting grant funding from them, but we still partner with them on a number of projects. So, for example, this mayor of Atlanta has a summer reading program that they do every year where they send thousands of books to kids. They pick 2 books a year, and one of those books, a young author from the city of Atlanta gets to write. So that's kind of how we still connect and work with the city, but now we are a for-profit LLC business that is a both traditional and hybrid book publisher.
I love it. I love it. And I think sometimes when particularly people of color go into business, we always think about, oh, I do a nonprofit because you're thinking, oh, I'll get grants, I'll get this and that. But you don't realize all of the paperwork that goes into it, that you are, basically trying to write grants to stay afloat.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it just seems easier. People think, oh, I'm going to do a nonprofit instead of saying, I'm just going to do a for profit and I can do some nonprofit type, work or outreach, through my business.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, so I like that.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you shared that because that was the same exact advice that I got. I was like, oh, you're helping people, Black kids write books. You're going to get so much money in grants. And we did, but it was like taking up 90% of my time, where it was like instead of being a book publisher, I'm really a grant writer. And then it's like the grants that I'm getting, they want my whole firstborn and arm and a leg for like a little bit of money. And it's like it's pulling me away from the work. And I think a lot of times with people, especially Black people who want to start nonprofits, it's because we want to have a social impact mission. And I don't think a lot of times we're given examples or shown examples of businesses that have a social impact but are profitable businesses. And I think a lot of times people think that if you want to help people or help a community, the only way to do it is through a nonprofit. And that's just simply not true.
And that's true. I just went through a class through Cornell University and I learned about nonprofit, for profit, but there's a middle ground where you can also be a for profit and proceeds from your business have a purpose or a mission. And that's a whole, and so it's like we don't learn about those type of businesses. Like you talk about the socks. I think it's Bamba and they sell socks
Mhm.
and every sock goes to,
Oh,
someone
yeah.
in need. They have
Tom's was like that too.
Yeah, they have a
Yeah,
mission-based business. So it's fine to make money and have a social impact at the same time.
I
So
agree.
I think sometimes we don't get that, as people of color, we don't get that type of education on how to still make a social impact and still make money.
Hmm.
So I love it. I love your model. So you've helped first little girls and then you help little boys. What has been the most rewarding so far through your journey of helping? We'll talk about the kids in particular.
Like the most rewarding kid or experience that I've worked with,
Yes,
or
yes.
oh, um, wow. I mean, they're all really great. I think the most rewarding part about the process of working with the children is when kids get to hold their book for the first time. Like seeing that light on their face is really, really exciting. Um, I think the most that's a tough one. I feel like I'm like picking between kids, like which kid is your favorite? But I do think that each kid that I've worked with has kind of shared or taught me something about this process and about this work that I'm deeply grateful for. And I think that I've really been impacted by them all, and also to the readers. I think that's one thing that I wasn't really um a lot of the times the focus has just been the authors. But when we go to like school events or when we have library visits and I see the kids look at the kids as the author, that's a really special moment too, because the I see the kind of light go up in our readers' eyes and seeing that, oh, well, if that kid could do it, then I can do it too, because they're just like a peer or they're like just a grade older than me. And I think that that makes them more excited about the process of both reading and writing their own book.
I love it. I love it. And tell me some of the stories that the students have written, because I know we as adults, we write children's books, but from a child's perspective or a young person's perspective, they may have a totally different story, a totally different way of looking at something. Share some of the unique stories that the students have come up with that you've helped publish.
There's so many. Some range from like their own personal experiences to like imaginary stories. For example, Not to Anything, which is right behind me. It's written by Pepper Pursley, which is a sports journalist. At the time she wrote the book, she was a 12-year-old sports journalist. She's covered ESPN, she's done the WNBA, and her book is all about her experience with bullying as a young kid and kids saying that she was too much of this and too much of that. And in her building her career as a kid, she's learned that you really can't be too much of anything, and that you can really do whatever it is that you want. And I mean, she's built an extraordinary career at such a young age and is helping so many other young girls across the world really show and prove that you can take up space in industries and spaces that may seem like they're just for boys or they're just for men. And so that was really cool. I think another book that stands out to me now that I'm a mom is Dinner Table Distractions, which I think, published a little over 3 years ago. And it's about a young girl who realizes that her family spends too much time on technology. Mom is working on the computer, dad is on calls, her sister's on the iPad. And so
Real life, right?
real life, because this is a reflection of, the time that we live in and the access to technology that we all have, both kids and adults. And a lot of times I think we like to say, oh, well, that those kids are playing too much on the iPads, but we're just as addicted to these phones as them.
Right.
Um, and so in her book, she made a new rule that there can't be no technology at the dinner table, and that dinner time should be full of no distractions, and that it should just be families enjoying a meal. And so now, at the end of the book, the family learns to realize that during this time, they cook together as a family and they eat together as a family, and there's absolutely no technology involved. And so that's really beautiful, because it's like that came from the mind of a young kid. Like, that's not an adult who came up with this topic. Like, that was a young girl who realized both her own relationship with technology and the people around her and really made that role. And I think that that's something that we can all learn from.
I love that, because they do have a different way of looking at stories. We're trying to make up stories and come up with what would a kid story look like when they are actually living the stories, in real time. So tell me about the
Exactly.
process. How does this young person find out about you? What is the process to even becoming published?
Yeah, the process has changed a little. The current process is now we have what we call our writing curriculum, which teaches kids how to write their own book. Typically, a lot of schools and after school programs will purchase that curriculum. Each individual kid will get a packet where they'll go through the character development, they'll go through the story plot, the outline, first draft and second draft. And by the time they reach the end of that book, they would have completed their own story that they can send to us for the chance of being published. So that would be, I think, the best bet is to reach out to your school, reach out to your after school programs, anywhere where your kid is a part of community. Tell them to go to museinc.net and they can learn more information about how to purchase this curriculum, how to implement it into their school. So that way your child can not only write their own book, but also be published.
That's great. So it's not like an individual kid can come on your website and say, I want to be published. They have to go through a school program.
Yes, at this
Okay.
point. Yeah, there used to be a time where we were open for submissions, and then we realized that I was getting like 20, 30, 50 plus submissions a day. And I was like, this is just not sustainable. So this is the best way to kind of streamline the process in order to work with us. And what we do on our adult side, we may bring it back on the children's, is we will only open submissions up for a certain time of the
Mhm.
year. And so you kind of have that window of opportunity. And we have, a team of advisors and readers who kind of help us comb through manuscripts to see what's going to be the best one to get published. Because the reality is that we're still an independent publisher. And although I'd love to publish everybody's book that comes across my desk, like we just simply don't have the resources and the capacity to take on everybody.
Sure. And I love it. I love that model because not only is the student learning, but whatever organization or school they're working with is also learning. And they're able to use what they're learning in English class or learning about first draft, second draft, all those things, creative writing that's probably giving the teacher or organization director, something that they can use to benefit their program as well. So I love
Absolutely.
that. I love that. So then you have the adult version. So how did that you said you wanted to see more adults getting published. What are some things that they're writing and what are you most proud of?
Yeah, we just published a memoir last month called Adopting Privilege, Reinventing My Adoptee Narrative, which is written by an incredible Black woman, Dr. Abigail Hasbury, who is both a birth mother, an adoptee, a therapist, and an adoption advocate. And so she works a lot in the industry advocating for adoptees. She's a transracial adoptee. So she's a Black woman who was raised in a white family, oftentimes a lot of white communities, and talks a lot about the process of both adoption and then the psychological process that adoptees go through. And a
Mm.
lot of times when we are told about adoption, it's told from the perspective of the adoptive parents and not a lot of times the child. And I think that now a lot of adoptees are kind of coming out of the fog, sharing their stories, and kind of being advocates to these agencies on how to root humanity in the process. Because at the end of the day, as tough as it is, adoption is an industry. It's a
Mhm.
billion-dollar industry. And I think sometimes a lot of agencies can be so caught up in the fact that it's a business that they're forgetting that these are children and livelihoods that are a part of that. So I'm really incredibly proud of that. We have a lot of universities that are making it required reading for people who are going into the social work field. There was a crazy stat to me that I didn't know until I worked on this project, which was that only 3 minutes of adoption is covered in undergrad social work programs. So a lot of social workers that are coming up aren't even really being taught about the process of adoption, how it affects the child. And so I'm really proud of that. We also had Kinfolk Meditations, which is a meditation deck card that came out, and it's all about affirmations and meditations for the entire family. So you can do it individually or you can do it with your children. And I think, in short, what I'm looking for in the Muse imprint is just stories and products that really elevate our humanity, stories that have never been shared before, and stories that can really help us all grow. And that's what I felt like Adopting Privilege was. I really feel like that's going to be a huge change maker, an agent in helping us hopefully reevaluate the way that the system works.
I love it. I love it. And when we think about publishing companies, we think about, the big traditional publishing houses. How do you maintain what does your staff look like? You have to have maybe marketing staff and, who's working with the illustrators and design and distribution and all that. What does your staff look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's changed over the years. At our peak, we had a team of 4 full time, um, which was a lot. It was great. We were, able to kind of pump out 13, 15 books a year. Now I'm a full-time staff of 1 and I hire on depending on the season that we're in. And I think it's a model that works better for me. I think a huge mistake I made as an independent book publisher is trying to compare my indie press to a Penguin Random House. And the reality is I do not have Penguin Random House money or
Right.
resources. And so that is reflected in the team structure. I think at first I was trying to fill out departments that corporate publishers had instead of looking at our unique differences and how we can actually be a little bit more nimble. So, for example, what that looks like is I have a project or a children's book that's coming out in December, and I'll hire a publicity expert sometime in the summer to kind of help gear up for that. I have a team of illustrators that I use, depending on what the product is and what the children's book is about, that I'll use. I have a team of editors that I use. So I'm more in like a freelance model now. And then if I need to hire people for a particular project, I'll do that in a season versus having people full time throughout the year. Because I just don't think that that's sustainable for most independent publishers. It's especially at our size.
Right. And I agree with that. And it's very good business advice because you're right. We'll start a business, hire all these people, and then when we can't pay them, we're feeling like, oh, my business is a failure when it's not. It's
Mhm.
just that we were growing beyond our capacity at that time. And it also
Exactly.
makes you have to say, I need to know this business from the inside out, from the ground up. And once you learn that, then you know, okay, I need somebody here because this is not my strength. I need someone here because this is not my strength. Or I can speak with this illustrator because I know what I'm looking for, and I know
Exactly.
this is a spread. I want this, or I want, spot images. So once you are your own person, you're kind of forced to know a little bit of everything to make your team see your vision.
Exactly.
So I love it. I love it. And then there was something else I wanted to ask about yourself. You wrote one book when you were in college. With all the publishing you're doing, are you writing another book or have you written other books?
I have not written another. I'm writing another book. I have not published another book. I think I will publish again. But I think in this season I'm really excited about just building community within the book industry, especially Black professionals who work in the ecosystem. But hopefully in the next year or two you'll see another book from me.
Okay, great. Now, I talked earlier about seeing you on Good Morning America. What are some of the cool things that have happened with you since you've started your company? Places that you've been, people you've met?
Oh wow, so many cool things. Since I started my company, I think one of the like in the early days, we were a part of Pharrell's Black Ambition Fund, which was really exciting. It's a fund that he has to support Black and Latinx founders. So that was really
And
fun. I went,
actually, I think that's how I learned about you. Because I went
oh, is
on their
it?
site and then I saw
Uh-huh.
the link and then I saw the GMA thing. That's how I learned about. So tell the people a little bit about that Pharrell project because I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, so in 2020, I believe, Pharrell launched the Black Ambition Fund, which is an investment fund for Black and Latinx founders. And it's really just a wide range of businesses. They kind of focus on AI all the way down to books and publishing, which I really don't have much to do with tech. But we were a recipient of the inaugural year that he did it, which was really cool because they've grown so much and they've had so many founders, but to be a part of the first cohort has been really cool to see how it's grown. It came with some mentorship, it came with funding, and even still to this day, like I'm in a group chat with the folks there, and they're finding ways to still support our work and kind of highlight the work that we're doing. So if there are any founders that are listening to this, I highly recommend going to the Black Ambition website. They have applications that open up, I think, once or twice a year, and I would apply for the chance to get funding and to be a part of a community and a network who really cares about seeing Black businesses grow.
Okay, so we got Pharrell, we had Good Morning America. What other cool things?
I got to go to the London Book Fair, which was really exciting. That was in 2023. So I was a speaker at the London Book Fair.
Wow.
For those who don't know, the London Book Fair happens once a year, and it's really like a rights and trade conference. So there are tons that happen all over. There's Bologna, which happens in Italy, and they specialize in children's books. So if you are a children's book publisher or even indie author, that's a great place to sell translation rights. London Book Fair is another, but they do children's and adult. So essentially, what that is you go, you pack your day with meetings with other publishers in other countries, and you're either trying to buy rights for books or sell rights. And what that looks like is, let's say I have a children's book that I think would work really well in France. I would meet with French publishers. I would pitch to them, and then I would hopefully sell the rights of that book so that way they can translate it in French and sell the book that I've published in their market. I would get an advance, and then I would get royalties on the back end. So that was really cool. The panel that I spoke on was about the future of the publishing industry and if it's a diverse place, which we all know it's really not. And so I was very transparent and frank about that. And then let's see what else did I do. It's probably a bunch that I'm missing, but I think those are the ones that stand out the most right now.
Okay. So what would you tell someone that has been, we see your rewards, we see the cool things you've done. What has been the most challenging? What are people not seeing that you have to go through behind the scenes and you're like, I'm going to pull my hair out, but I'm going to look good for everybody else, what, while I'm doing it. Like what has really frustrated you, particularly about maybe the publishing industry and maybe some doors that may not have been open for you that may have been open for other people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the short answer is that there are so many challenges. There are challenges that I'm still working through every day. I think the other thing to notice is that although the accolades and the spaces are really great and they do come with other opportunities, hopefully, maybe, it doesn't eliminate the challenges and the barriers that exist in the industry. I think the area that I'm most frustrated with in the book industry is the way that distribution works. Um, Everything will probably be solved at the time this airs, but we were with one of the largest book distributors in the country. We were with them for 3 years. They were always the minority of our sales. And then we went through a period where we just weren't getting paid and like where our books were still being sold. Um, but it's really tough because the way that the industry works, they say in order to reach scale, you have to have a distributor. But even getting into a relationship with the distributor is extremely hard because they want you to have a certain amount of sales. So how can you have said sales if all of the sales have to go through this one channel?
Right.
A lot of bookstores won't purchase your books if you're not in the Ingram catalog,
Exactly.
or they will, but they'll put you on consignment. And consignment, who is consignment really helpful for? It's not helpful for the author. It's not helpful for the indie, for the indie press. And then for a lot of times, libraries, there are some, but for the majority, libraries only again purchase through distributors. Um, so that's my biggest thing. I think that there are platforms like Ingram Spark that are helpful, but that puts you on .com. You don't have like individual sales reps that are going out and purchasing your book. So just the entire way that distribution works is my biggest frustration. And now going back to being self-distributed, which we were in the beginning, I'm seeing that there need to be more systems for people to do that better. When I first got in, I was like selling books out of my car. I was pulling up on bookstores. And then I got more into the industry and people were like, well, you need a distributor. And then I got a distributor. And then I was like, they don't really understand our books. And you have all of these sales reps that are going out and pitching your books to bookstores. But if none of those sales reps look like you, if none of those sales reps understand what it is that your book is trying to do, then how can they really sell that book? So again, you're the best person to sell that book. But if you're trying to build a company and run editorial and run production and market, you just simply can't do it all. So I can talk about that for hours. But yes, in short, my biggest frustration now is the way that the distribution model works in publishing.
I think that's something for me too. I help people self-publish, and people are always saying, "How do I get my book to a bigger market?" And it is the distribution. And if you don't have that distribution connection, you are falling prey to, like you said, the big traditional publishing houses who, just because of the name on their, copyright page, people are going to push that. They're going to push, those bigger traditional market books as opposed to a smaller market, particularly if the smaller market they feel have brown faces on it and they don't feel that they can push that to their store. So that has been a challenge for a lot of people, and I know social media has helped a lot. People just getting out there grinding themselves on social media as an author and having a platform, that helps as well. But the distribution has always been, something that I know particularly companies of color in publishing have had a challenge with for a long time.
Yeah, it's a huge barrier to entry. And yeah, I don't think that there are systems that really gonna help indie authors at this point get into those markets. So hopefully I think the real solution and what we need is we really need like our own Black owned conglomerate, because that's really what it is. Like the big five have really monopolized this industry, and because there's so many of them, they can, they have the numbers behind them. So if there's a way for us to kind of come together and galvanize, I think that would be a good solution to hopefully solve distribution.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think the time is now, particularly with all that's going on, even with, stories not even being shared in school anymore because of, diversity and inclusion, conflict, or what's going on. Now more than ever, our stories need to be told, they need to be shared, and they need to have kids see that they are reflected in literature. We
Mhm.
talk about, I always ask authors, what did you read when you were younger, and they always talk about how they look for things that represent themselves and reflect themselves. I don't know how many kids said, "Oh, I want to read about Underground Railroad." No, nobody's really
Yeah.
wanting to read about that. I mean, like I said, there is history. Okay, Black History Month, I get it, but that's not what you want to curl up with your child at night and read as they're going to bed about somebody
Yeah.
running from, you know, slave catchers. Like that's just not
Yeah.
it. And then we get into the hair, which is cool, and jump roping, those type of things that they feel are traditional, for us, but just not the stories about real life, real joy, real, people of color, fun and issues. We want that when we sit up with our kids at night. And for you to help those young people create those stories, that is so rewarding. I mean, I can't even imagine being a kid and I see my book as beautiful as the books that you have on your shelf. And I'm going to schools and I'm reading my books to the kids, and the city is buying my books. Like that is, you are doing such a service to our young people by giving them a voice, because voice matters and voice is powerful. If you have a voice as a young person, just imagine when you get older what you can do with that. Like then nothing can stop you when you know you
Exactly.
have a voice. So
Exactly.
I love that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So anything else you want to share about, what's coming up with your company, or some interesting people want people to know about you and what you got coming up?
Yeah, I would say I think this event may have already passed at the time listeners are listening to it. But I am in the process of planning the Black Powerhouse Summit, which is taking place April 25th. Our first one is going to be virtual, but the next one would be in person here in Atlanta. And it's essentially bringing together the Black book ecosystem. So we have speakers from both corporate publishers to indie publishers. We have Black bookstore owners, Black librarians, Black book influencers, and book club leaders. And the goal is to get us all in one room to not only advance our own individual careers, but to create solutions to a lot of these challenges that we're talking about, and create a place where we can all work together. Because I think there's so many of us in our own corners of the world trying to create diversity and champion diversity, but the issue is that we're all working siloed and we really have to start coming together. So I'm really excited about that. If this for some reason is coming out before then, I would say go to theblackpowerhouse.com, grab your tickets. If not, please plan to attend the event in Atlanta in the spring of 2026. We also have a podcast, the Black Powerhouse Podcast, where we are interviewing industry experts, and interviewing people who work in this space and are doing the work to diversify and make it a more equitable space for us all to thrive.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that you're not looking at this is what we're doing here. You're looking at this is what we're all doing, and how do we get together and not only just learn about each other, but learn from each other. I think that is so important, that sometimes we just say, "Oh, this is what, she's doing over here, this is what they're doing over there." But how do we learn from each other and share some of the challenges? And someone may say, "Hey, I have a problem. I can solve your distribution problem because this is what we do." And you're like, "What? I didn't know about that."
Exactly.
So I think just having these type of conversations and forums and bringing people together, all for one good. We have voices, we need to share them, and we have valuable stories that the world needs to read. And by doing conferences like this, it just gives us all an opportunity to thrive and elevate in what we do. So
I
thank
agree.
you. Thank you for that. So
Yeah.
I did give you a little homework. I don't know if you read the whole little rundown. And I asked people to tell us their once upon a time story about their life. So did you get a chance to work on that and share that with us?
I am being so transparent and I did not, but I'm gonna try to come up with it on the fly.
Okay.
Can you give me yours? And then maybe that'll like help and
You
inspire
know what?
my.
I don't have my script in front of me, but I would
Okay.
say once upon a time there was a little girl who dreamed of winning a Pulitzer Prize. And
Mhm.
so she got a typewriter. She learned how to type. She joined her journalism classes. She became a journalist. And she also learned that she could teach young girls how to write. So one day she started the Merged State Explorers to teach girls to travel around the world and write. And while she never won a Pulitzer Prize, she won the opportunity to give girls a voice. And that is what mattered most.
I love that. So beautiful. Okay, we're gonna go on the fly, see how this goes. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who wrote a short story on her grandmother's old desktop computer. The computer shut down and she lost her story. She grew up and had dreams of being a big time event planner. She went to school and she eventually turned her passion to learning kids how to write their own books. She helped kids not only write their books, keep their books so they wouldn't be deleted on an old desktop. Those kids published those books. And although she always had dreams of planning events, she built a publishing company to help kids write books. And now she's found her way to plan events again that's still centered in storytelling.
I love it.
I hope that was good.
I love it. It all comes back. And I think that's the importance about it's important to get our stories just in our mind in a nutshell, because there's so much that goes on in our lives. But when we look at our story as a once upon a time, we focus on what were those pivotal moments that, helped us or challenged us as we had a goal. And maybe sometimes a goal that you had as a child changes or it alters, and that's okay. And I think sometimes, by telling these stories to ourselves, it's like, you know what? I've done some cool things, or, I'm on the journey to some amazing things. And just by putting it in a nutshell as once upon a time, it lets us celebrate ourselves. It lets other people celebrate themselves. And just to look at your life and say, once upon a time, I wanted to do that. And this is what happened. And, it's made us the amazing person that we are today. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So is there anything else before we leave that you like to share? You want to share your website again one more time and how people can get in touch with you if they wanted more information about your curriculum and all that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for all things publishing, I would go to Muse, MUSEINC.net. You can click the Young Authors Publishing tab and learn more about our curriculum, how you can bring it to your schools and your after school program, so that way kids can start writing their own books. If you're an indie author, indie publisher, bookseller, or work anywhere in and around the world of books, I would say go to theblackpowerhouse.com, listen to the podcast, come to the summit, and get involved with the community of Black professionals that work in the book ecosystem.
That was a great interview with Leah Hernandez, the founder of Muse Inc. Check out her website at Muse, that's MUSE, Inc.net. This episode was hosted by me, Sonia Hollins, and produced by M2 Macmillan Media. Are you an author with an amazing story to share? Or do you work in the publishing industry with insight that can inspire others? Well, we want you on Girls Talk Books, where voices matter. Or are you an aspiring author with a story to tell? Well, we can help with that too. Visit girlstalkbooks.com to learn more.